Hi, welcome to this episode of Crabs, Goes and Goats. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Leo, Thursday 28th of January, which is tomorrow as I'm recording. Also talking about the general transits in the fixed signs going on at the moment during this week and a little bit beyond. Also talking about Aquarius season and the sign of Aquarius and the different ways we can look at Aquarius. Sometimes it's been a little bit misrepresented as a sign, I think. So let's try and get to the core of the sign, if that's possible, during this episode. So here we can see the full moon, Sun in Aquarius, tomorrow opposite Moon in Leo. And of course, every month we have a full moon when the Sun is opposite the Moon. New moons are associated with new beginnings, times of initiation, seeds of a new project or new idea. Full moons are associated more with climax, with things coming to a head, with emotional revelation or physical revelation or conclusion. There is something of that energy about this full moon. Remember, full moons have to be taken into context with what else is happening. And where they fall in your chart, of course, because one every month doesn't always mean a conclusion to anything in particular, depending on how it affects you. But there is so much other energy going on this week in the fixed signs that we need to take into consideration, that this full moon doesn't really represent a conclusion to anything much, because but it could represent very significant revelation in terms of ongoing issues that are reflected by this fixed energy. Saturn in Aquarius, square Mars and Uranus in Taurus. This very stubborn, feet being dug into the ground energy, this very realistic, almost cold water on the face energy of Saturn that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. Things are very real right now, and they're very they're asking people to in a sense define who they are and what they are, more than last year's energy of this very stuck Saturn Pluto in Capricorn, things under the surface not being expressed. This is different. Things are being expressed, but there is not much cooperation, there's not much agreement, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of questions being asked, and Aquarius loves to try and solve problems. So people are finding solutions or trying to find solutions to problems that may not be there right now. Mars and Uranus in Taurus are very irritating to Saturn and the Sun at the moment. They're pushing things further than they're pushing tension further than it needs to go, and there may not be any solutions at this point. So the idea of a full moon being associated with resolution, well, I'm not sure how much we can say that right now. What we can say is perhaps going to show us something interesting, possibly dramatic, but something revelatory that we need to know, and we need to say, or somebody needs to show. And this is where you can learn from where it is in your own chart, where Leo and Aquarius are in your own chart, where this can come out. So you might see developments here that are saying, okay, well, this gives me more of an idea of where I stand. Don't think this is the end of the story, because it really isn't in terms of these houses of your zodiac, because we've seen that there's a lot of stuck energy, and now Sun is conjuncting Jupiter. So tomorrow this will be exactly conjunct Jupiter. There may be a possible way forward that's coming now. So this Aquarian energy that is very much to do with invention, new ideas, being positive and modern, and thinking outside of the box. This has been low on the ground with Saturn being close to the Sun. This, Mars squaring. It's been more about, how do I get out of this dead end questions. Well, now with the Sun coming up to Jupiter and coming up to this Aquarius stellium that we're going to see in February, because Venus will go into Aquarius soon. You can see here it's in Capricorn coming into Aquarius. Mercury's about to turn retrograde. In about a week's time, we're going to see a build-up of planetary energy in Aquarius, and these are the faster moving planets. So this is a very much daily Aquarian experience that we're coming into now, which could be very, very interesting and could open up a lot of doors, bring in new possibilities that we hadn't been considering. And this is the first inkling of this tomorrow with this full moon and Sun conjunct Jupiter, that yeah, actually maybe there are more opportunities than I thought there were. Maybe there's more hope than I thought there was. Of course, that's not to say that this is not a time when things are stressful, because they really are. The Sun is still squaring Uranus. Saturn and Uranus will be square for some time now. This is kind of a theme for the year of the Saturnian nature of structure and responsibility, squaring this Uranian nature of sudden change and breakdown of structure. So this is a theme for the year. But this full moon is perhaps going more towards the Jupiter energy in Aquarius, or forward thinking, being original, which is the one of the Aquarian buzzwords. And the next couple of weeks are perhaps, with Mars separating here from this conjunction and this square, we actually may be seeing us being a lot more inventive, and ideas coming into what house of the zodiac you find Aquarius. Where's your Aquarian house of the zodiac? New ideas, new possibilities coming in this area that you didn't actually imagine up until the next few days. So this is a reason to be optimistic, despite all this very basic, stubborn, fixed energy that we've got here. And we've actually been through a very intense period in the last couple of weeks. So what this does when this releases is a kind of like a relief energy, and the full moon may be the first chance to feel that kind of, okay, now I can breathe a little bit more. What we're looking at now, I think, is more reason to be optimistic than not, okay? Because we've seen such a lot of heaviness going on. Mercury, however, is about to turn retrograde, although at the moment it's not making a major aspect to any other planet. And I feel this Mercury Aquarius is very original and very inventive right now. Ideas, anything to do with communication, is actually coming in a really interesting way at the moment. Although Mercury will go retrograde quite soon, and it's already in its what we call the shadow period, which is the period just before it turns retrograde, where it slows down and we begin to see this confusing sorry, I live very near a hospital, which at the moment is a busy place. So you may occasionally hear those happening during the recording if you heard a siren in the background there. But Mercury to go into retrograde motion in Aquarius, we're going to see less than direct methods of communication during the next few weeks, and we're going to see things that we think are incredibly clear and set changing. And this is something that I think will be a theme of the next couple of weeks, because Aquarius is a sign which loves clarity, and it loves to be very scientific and cold about information. Well, be careful with the facts that are coming forward in the next couple of weeks, and I don't mean on a fake news kind of basis. I mean like on a daily life kind of way. Be careful what seems set and what seems true at one moment, because this can change. And what is great about this energy is that you are in a position to now be able to think in ways and think of ways to solve problems, because Aquarius is all about problem solving, and ideas you hadn't thought of can come forward, as I said. So to sum up, this full moon may be a little bit dramatic, it may be a little bit revelatory, but expect nothing new in terms of ongoing issues. Don't expect conclusions to ongoing issues. However, this is a creative full moon. And these two signs are creative, Aquarius and Leo, in different ways. And this is a time to tap into your creativity right now, especially when it comes to the house of the zodiac where you find Aquarius, possibly Leo too.
Okay, so we're now in Aquarius season, and I'm going to now look at the sign of Aquarius, which is represented by the water bearer, the carrier of the water, not the water itself, because Aquarius is an air sign, and it's to do with thinking and living in the mind and not so much dealing with the feelings. But Aquarius is known for its brilliant mind. It's known for being able to invent something out of nothing. It's like the person you need when you want a solution to a problem that you can't solve. The person you need to be stuck on a desert island with is the Aquarius, because they always find something that you're not looking for, that you didn't find even. And so this kind of scientifically inventive energy is something that you see with Aquarius, that it doesn't matter how intellectual they are, they will be able to think of something, to view something from a different perspective. They don't want the same thing again. Aquarius does not want repetition. It wants something that is somehow challenging to it. And Aquarius, if it's not thrown challenges, they'll create their own challenges. They're not going to sit on their laurels. So they're known for being individual. They're known for wanting to stand out from the crowd and not necessarily to get attention, but just to not go with the crowd. They kind of look down on that mass appeal idea, this mass thinking idea, and they pride themselves on their ability to decide for themselves, which sometimes leads the sign of Aquarius down some strange avenues, sometimes conspiracy theories, or deliberately rebelling against something that they see as authority or as controlling them, and that might not be actual authority. It might just be something that makes them feel hemmed in, and this is when you get the best from Aquarius, and it's also when you get the worst from Aquarius. It's when you get this reaction to what they perceive as pressure, and as I said, if they don't have that naturally occurring in their life, they will actually create those situations, consciously or unconsciously, to motivate themselves, because they need to be motivated. They need to feel fired up. In terms of how they think, at least, it's like it can't be boring and it can't be the same. So they have a very critical eye when it comes to systems and management, and they don't like systems or management that constrict the individual, because it's all about, for them, it's all about being free to act in a way that is independent. So this is why they also have a reputation. The sign has a reputation for preferring in relationships to have independence, and not to like relationships where they're too mollycoddled or suffocated by their partner. And this sign was associated with ideas like feminism in the 70s. Germaine Greer is kind of typically Aquarian in the way she expresses her ideas against the current thing, and that's been interesting in recent years, that Aquarius is not always the one coming up with the radical idea. Aquarius is the one coming up against the ideas that are currently fashionable sometimes. So you can see them changing, actually, depending on how they want to be perceived as individual, or going against ideas that they feel will stop people from thinking individually. So this idea of them being humanitarian or radical is a little bit overestimated, because they are individualistic. So it depends on how it fits in with their idea of independence and freedom. Whether that idea is politically radical or not is a completely another matter, because there are plenty of free market thinkers who are Aquarian, and they see that as an individual right to the free market. It's like they perceive that idea as well in keeping with their with their ideas of individual freedom. There's a little bit of a me against the world with Aquarius, as well as me for the world. It's like a conundrum in a sense. So where does this humanitarian idea of Aquarius come from? Well, they are good at connecting with a lot of people on a very equal level at the same time. And if you meet Aquarians for the first time, they can be very, very friendly to anyone. It doesn't matter who they are. Like they have the idea that everyone should be treated the same. So they're often very good at making friends quickly with people on I wouldn't say a superficial level, but on a level that connects meaningfully very quickly. It's just that they do have, when it comes to being close to an Aquarian, that's not so easy. So with all the air signs, there's this sometimes fear of emotional, contacting their real emotions, and once you get very close to Aquarian, you recognize how those fears of those emotions can sometimes affect their behavior a lot. And of course, it doesn't mean that you can't work on that if you are Aquarian, and lots of people with a strong Aquarius placements do work on that, and it's a really good idea for people with Aquarius strong to remember that sometimes their reactions to something are based on emotion when they think they're not, because what Aquarius likes to do is to separate the rational from the emotional and make a decision that has a reason. So they face an emotional challenge, and then they will think, well, why is this happening? Okay, it's happening because of this, so this is why it's happening. Now I understand it, without actually connecting to the darker emotion, if you like, that's brought them to the point where they're at emotionally. This is something that all the air signs experience to one degree or another, is this disconnect with the emotions can lead them in a world where emotional issues are not focused on enough, and this is a personal point of view that you may not agree with. However, the modern world in which we live, in my opinion, disconnects from emotional issues way too easily in almost any arena we're in, whether it be work or the media or whatever it is. We want to be rational. Rational is good. We want to be practical. Practical is good. But when it comes to emotional, not so sure about that. Some cultures are not as unemotional as others, but the culture that I come from especially has this kind of blank on emotions, and Aquarians are very comfortable with that quite often in terms of everyday dealings. So it makes it more difficult if you come from a culture like that and as Aquarian to contact the emotions, because actually you've been affirmed to run away from them a bit as you grow up. So it takes more effort in some cases, in some cultures, to contact that as an air sign than others, in my opinion. You may, it's something for you to think about, and don't have to agree with it. So it's like they connect very well, very quickly to people, and they're very open in terms of what they accept and don't accept, usually with people on first meeting. And this idea of being independently strong is also very useful in the employment world, as long as I said before, they don't feel managed or controlled. They can often find a role that they can bring their own intellectual skills to. So, I mean, you would say that self-employment is perhaps more suitable for an Aquarius, and I must say all the people with strong Aquarius I know are pretty much self-employed, but that may be just for the people I know more than anything. But they even if they are working as a part of a wider group, they want to be seen as individual within that wider group. So this the try anything spirit that Aquarius has, and the linking to alternative ideas is very strong within them, and they have been attached to the idea of modern thinking as well. This idea that they things like technology and science as a modern force is something we associate with Aquarius. Okay, I was looking at famous Aquarians, and one thing that struck me was the names in literature. So Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, and Virginia Woolf, all born under the sign of Aquarius. And when I looked through the musicians, singers born under this sun sign, there weren't that many women. And then I looked at the writers, and it was a completely different story. And Aquarius loves to be on its own, working on its own, and this with this spirit of freedom and independence. And these names are three of the ones that struck me. Charles Dickens was also an Aquarius, and very much challenged the authority of the time with his writings in terms of bringing a spotlight on poverty in Victorian England that may not have sat comfortably with the ruling classes at that time. And this sense of challenging the system is something where Aquarius feels very much at home. Interestingly, looking in politics, I couldn't find that many people who were famous for challenging the system. And in fact, there's some names in there that you would associate more, especially with the American Republican Party: Sarah Palin, Brett Kavanaugh, and Ronald Reagan, who famously identified himself as a water sign in a joke, because his wife, Nancy Reagan, was known to use astrology in the White House, supposedly. And then one day he made this joke that, yeah, we go very well because she's an earth sign and I'm a water sign, and together we make mud. So he thought he was a water sign. So he can't have been that much into astrology as some people suggested. If I think it was more Nancy. But when I looked at the actors under this sign, I remembered Paul Newman was an Aquarian, but also James Dean. Now this is really interesting, that sometimes Aquarian men have this kind of untouchable, unattainable kind of beauty about them, and this idea of sexiness as what something that you can't attain, in a sense, which I found really interesting, because I think Aquarian men have this air about them I don't think it's aloof in the sense of like, I'm higher than you. It's like, it's almost distant yet very appealing in terms of this secret emotion that's going on that we can't quite work out actually what it is. So that was something that struck me looking at the notable people born under the sign. In terms of music, I'd say Bob Marley fits the Aquarian idea very strongly. He very much pushed messages in his songs, and they're about everybody. Bob Marley was trying to say this is about all of us. He wasn't, actually, while he was challenging, made some big political statements in his music. The Zimbabwe song and the Zimbabwe shows was very much taking sides. But he always also liked to, the one love idea was very much central to the music that he made. Also born under this sign, Phil Collins, Sam Cooke. I have Spotify. If you Antastico on Spotify, check my Aquarian playlist on there because it's now up. I didn't put any Phil Collins on there, but anyway. Jam Master Jay, King of the Crossfader, he was an Aquarius. Anderson .Paak, very original. Anderson .Paak, kind of jazz hip hop. Very much organic hip hop is what he's kind of known for. Which Lupe Fiasco is also an Aquarius, who I regard as one of the most interesting political thinkers in rap from time, actually, because he really much thought about politics on a world stage, and issues abroad from the United States, which is unusual for a rapper. And he had a lot of interesting things to say about that. I think he's hugely underrated, Lupe Fiasco. Also born under the sign Rhapsody. She's come to prominence in the last few years. Jay Dilla, the greatest hip-hop producer of all time, who really was an artist in his own right rather than a producer in terms of the beats he created standalone as tracks. And he's become an absolute legend in the world of hip-hop. Peter Gabriel, who reached out in a very Aquarian way to all these musicians from all around the world to create this idea of world music, which simply just means listening to music from Asia and Africa and South America that we hadn't previously listened to in the UK, and incorporating that into a new sound in his music, while also building these festivals, the WOMAD festivals in the UK, which are absolutely amazing. Also born under this sign, Johnny Guitar Watson. Again, quite different. Johnny Guitar Watson, if you've heard his stuff, he very much fitted that 70s sort of soul funk thing, but he had his own thing going on where again, a little bit overlooked as an artist for me. The singer of the Sex Pistols, John Lydon, and this is what I was saying about Aquarius, right? Is they can make these rebellious statements, but then in later years we can see him becoming something else in terms of what he's saying. This is an air sign thing to a certain extent. The idea is not permanent. This is something that other signs don't really understand about the air signs, is that how can they have one strong idea and then it be changed? Because the idea is the idea for an air sign. It's not them, right? So John Lydon's anti-state proclamations of the 70s as Johnny Rotten are now becoming what's the slogan? The Trump slogan, I can't make America great again. You see with one of these caps on a video, and he thinks it's a statement against the world. This is what we were saying before in the previous episode about Trump supporters believing they're the rebels. They're not the ones who are causing the problems or in charge. They're actually the ones that are being stepped on. So this is the thing with Aquarius, that they like to express original ideas and they don't want to be constrained. So I very much think that's interesting about him. Okay, so thanks. I think that's all I have to say about Aquarius season. It's very real. It's going to get easier, and the next time I want to look at the new moon in Aquarius and how that can open up things for us. So I think from this week we're going to see the better side of Aquarius coming out in our everyday experiences. So keep believing in yourself at this point. Keep trusting in yourself to make the right decision, and realize that this week is not such an easy week to go forward. Much love to anybody who watches this, and thanks for watching to the end if you did, and I will see you next time. Have a great week.